And thank you for tuning in to Lavender Hill here on KZUM Lincoln, KZUM HD, 89.3 on the FM or online at kzum.org. Perhaps you're using one of those handy-dandy smarter-than-a-calculator devices, like Rose probably would be, and listening to the show on your favorite mobile listening app like TuneIn or Next Radio. Or you could be listening up to 2 weeks after original broadcast date on KZUM's archives. That's kzum.org/archives. Great way to get caught up on your favorite show, listen to it again, or share it with a friend. All right. Well, that was Thank You for Being a Friend by Andrew Gold. The theme song to the Golden Girls, and everybody probably listening knows why I chose to start out with that. The great Betty White passed away on December 31st, 2021, just a couple of days ago, 18 days shy of her 100th birthday. A great friend to the LGBT community and one of the early supporters of marriage equality in Hollywood. Yes, the beloved actress passed away overnight in Los Angeles. She was the beloved actress and animal rights advocate who stood by the LGBTQ plus community as a strong ally. She died at her home in Brentwood in West Los Angeles. Her friend and agent Jeff Witchus told the Washington Post Friday she was 99 years young. White, who was due to celebrate her 100th birthday on January 17th, had tweeted on Tuesday, December 28th, "My 100th birthday. I cannot believe it is coming up." And she was talking about People magazine and how they were going to be celebrating with her with a special issue, which is available at newsstands nationwide, as well as a special movie that was going to be aired, and I believe still will be aired on her birthday. Reacting to the news about White's death from their home in Wilmington, Delaware, when asked by reporters during an informal press gaggle, President Joe Biden said, quote, "That's a shame. She was a lovely lady." And the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, added, "Who didn't love Betty White? We're so sad." California Governor Gavin Newsom issued a statement Friday, and this is all according to LosAngelesBlade.com, by the way. Betty was a trailblazer, Newsom said, and easily one of the most beloved and lasting figures in television. She co-founded her own production company in the 1950s, one of two women at the time wielding creative control on both sides of the camera. Her 80-year career is the longest for any woman in television. And her work on Golden Girls created a cultural touchstone that remains relevant almost 40 years after its premiere. Can you believe that? 40 years ago. Wow. But above all else, Newsom continued, she was a beacon of hope throughout her career, bringing joy and humor to everything she did. Although she may not have been born here, she was a timeless Californian treasure through and through, and was inducted into the California Hall of Fame in 2010. Betty happily shared her talents with the world, and her spark will live on, inspiring generations to come. A new book celebrating White's life and career by veteran entertainment journalist Ray Richmond provides a narrative to the Emmy Award-winning actress's journey in Hollywood, including hosting an early variety talk show. White became a TV sitcom star in The Mary Tyler Moore Show and The Golden Girls. Her appearance on Saturday Night Live in 2010 earned her a new generation of admirers and set records, by the way. A nationwide theatrical event of Betty White, 100 Years Young, a birthday celebration, I believe is still scheduled to air on January 17th, celebrating her 100th birthday. The one-day-only movie event is set to highlight moments of the actress had during her career, with appearances by Ryan Reynolds, Tina Fey, Robert Redford, and Morgan Freeman. So, we'll just have to wait and see if that actually does happen, and I hope it does. Continuing from the article, in an interview with Frontier's LA Magazine features editor Jeremy Kinzer, a portion of which was published in The Advocate on October 10th, 2011, White attributed her huge following in the LGBTQ community to her racy characters and her love of animals. To quote from that interview, "Throughout my career, I've always portrayed characters that were humorous, but also weren't afraid to speak their minds, especially when it came to racy or controversial topics. I think this struck a chord with the LGBT community. We both also share a very strong love for animals. When you combine the two, it's a very strong match, she said. White was also an early supporter of same-sex marriage, telling Parade magazine in 2010, "I don't care who anybody sleeps with. If a couple has been together all that time, and there are gay relationships that are more solid than some heterosexual ones, I think it's fine if they want to get married. I don't know how people can get so anti-something. Mind your own business. Take care of your affairs, and don't worry about other people so much." Wise words from Betty White. You can read that article in full at losangelesblade.com. I do encourage you, as always, click on the links that are embedded therein so you can learn more. And, that's almost the extent today of my tribute to Betty White. I know many people have been, pulling up the Golden Girls or the Mary Tyler Moore Show or some of Betty White's movies and other things that she was involved in, just so that they can remember how great of an actress and a person she was. Her comedic timing is legendary and something that many have strived to live up to. And some have even speculated, and this is more in a sense of sardonic compassion, that her comedic timing was still at play when she passed away. Hopefully, that means that 2022 will be a much better year for everybody, because Betty White's not here to guide us, as some believe that she may have been for many a year, being the last of the Golden Girls and the last of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, I believe, to pass away. So, here's to you, Betty White. And today, my music choices are all in honor of her. One way or another, the friendship that she had for so many people. And speaking of which, let's just go ahead and get right back on into the music before I bring us down a notch with some not so great stuff, but there's some good stuff as well that I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to try to stay as positive as possible for you today, this first show of 2022 here on Lavender Hill in KZUM. So let's listen to Queen with Friends Will Be Friends. Little Queen there with Friends Will Be Friends, and you are listening to Lavender Hill, and I'm going to bring you some good news before we get into just a little bit of bad, and then, continue on with the good for as much of the show as possible. A non-binary student has won a battle against their school that required short hair for non-female students. Now, this is a combo story here, if you will. It's not just a victory for the non-binary student, but for male students as a whole at the Magnolia Independent School District in the Houston, Texas area. The Houston area district has dropped its discriminatory dress code policy that punished boys and non-binary students for wearing the hair too long. The school board also voted on a change last Monday night that would allow for earrings to be considered gender neutral, according to the Texas Tribune. Parents and the Texas chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union sued the school this past October after the school punished several students, including a Latinx 11-year-old who wore a ponytail to represent their culture as part of the district's settlement with the ACLU. The students punished under the policy will have their records expunged as well, according to that decision. Of the 7 students involved in the lawsuit, 6 identified as boys and 1 identified as non-binary. This is according to LGBTQNation.com. The school reportedly refused to recognize the non-binary students' gender and made them follow the male dress code. The students have been subjected to long in-school suspensions, disciplinary alternative education programs, and other punishments for failing to make sure that their hair didn't fall past the bottom of their ears. Wait a minute. It is 2022 now, right? And this was 2021, right? The dress code also said that all hair must be kept out of their eyes and yet forbade boys from wearing a ponytail or man bun. Plaintiffs have been subject to severe ongoing and escalating harms due to the district-wide policy that prohibits boys, but not girls, from wearing long hair, according to the lawsuit. They have been denied classroom instruction, barred from extracurricular activities, and forced to be suspended and separated from their peers for well over a month simply because these students do not conform to Magnolia ISD's stereotypical notions of gender. The 11-year-old non-binary student, referred to as TM in the lawsuit, said that they had worn long hair for the last couple of years as a critical component of expressing their gender identity. If TM is forced to wear short hair based on gender stereotypes associated with their gender assigned at birth, the lawsuit contended, TM will lose a vital part of who they are and sacrifice an essential element of their gender expression. Speaking with the Texas Tribune, Danielle Miller, TM's mother, talking about the trauma their child endured by even the thought of having to cut their hair, is quoted as saying, TM was just in absolute devastation and tears. Based on their reaction and how harsh and traumatized they were, I realized that we weren't going to be cutting their hair. After the lawsuit was filed, the school district initially released a statement claiming that its dress code didn't violate Title IX, the federal law requiring equal treatment and opportunities for students regardless of sex. The school also issued a later statement to NBC News claiming to, quote, respect varying viewpoints as well as, quote, the rights of citizens to advocate for change. You can read that article at lgbtqnation.com, and again, follow those links if you want more information. Now, that's a bit of a victory. Actually, that's more than a bit of a victory. That is a victory. And now we've got something that we need to try to become victorious over, at least in the state of Arizona, where a new bill could make doctors face up to 3 years in jail for providing transgender care. Arizona State Representative Senator Wendy Rogers has proposed Senate Bill 1045 to prohibit medical procedures that affirm the gender identity of children and teens who are transgender. The law would ban medical staff from performing gender-affirming surgeries on transgender minors, as well as prescribing testosterone to transgender men or estrogen to transgender women under the age of 18. Health professionals who do so would be guilty of a Class 4 felony with a prison sentence of 1 to 3 years. Should note that almost no physician would perform gender-affirming surgery on a minor unless it was deemed to be of dire medical importance. Anyways, back to the article. Senate Bill 1045 also states that teachers, school staff, and administrators cannot, quote, withhold from a minor child's parent or legal guardian information related to the minor child's perception that his or her gender or sex is inconsistent with his or her biological sex, end quote. Oof. That's a lot of words. This would ultimately force teachers and schools to out trans and gender nonconforming students to their parents, even at the student's potential peril. This proposed bill follows suit with a bill that was ushered in Texas in April of last year and luckily did not pass during its legislative session. Leading healthcare organizations in the state condemned the bill, including the Texas Medical Association, Texas Counseling Association, and Texas Pediatric Society. The organizations all say gender-affirming care is the best way to provide care to transgender children. The American Psychiatric Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and others have agreed for years that gender-affirming care is the best path forward for trans youth. Despite the common misconception, trans youth do not get surgeries either. Like I said earlier, gender-affirming surgeries are not performed on anyone under the age of 18 in the United States. According to the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, guidelines for standards of care, a candidate must be age of majority in their given country, 18 in the United States, and also must have received 12 continuous months of hormone therapy as appropriate to the patient's gender goals, unless the patient has a medical contraindication or is otherwise unable or unwilling to take hormones. Trans youth do not receive surgeries, the article reiterates. That is not what gender-affirming care is. Gender-affirming care is more along the lines of social transitioning and hormone therapy, such as the use of puberty blockers, a treatment that is also reversible if necessary. The article goes into more detail on some of this. Gender-affirming care saves lives, one of the headings reads. Studies have proven that both hormone therapy and social transitioning have been proven through studies to be beneficial for transgender youth, a group that is at an elevated risk of suicide due to bullying and lack of school social support. A most recent study in 2021 found that hormone therapy has a positive effect on trans youth, reducing their risk of suicide. Other studies have found there is a significant inverse association between rendering treatment with pubertal suppression during adolescence and lifetime suicidal ideation among the transgender adults who wanted such treatment. These results align with past literature suggesting that pubertal suppression for transgender adolescents who wanted it is associated with favorable mental health outcomes. Another study by the American Academy of Pediatrics reached the exact same conclusion. It is also important to note that not everyone who is transgender can fully transition or wants to fully transition. The trans community often faces significant obstacles to acquiring health care, either due to lack of employment opportunities or to health insurers choosing not to cover vital health care procedures for transgender persons. Lambda Legal wrote, access to transgender health care is challenged further by laws and policies across the country that codify myths that the care is risky, cosmetic, or monolithic. For example, the federal Medicare program excludes coverage of sex reassignment surgery, deeming it controversial and experimental, despite decades of research supporting its effectiveness. Exclusions like this one are rampant in the private insurance context, and many large insurance companies excluding all coverage for sex reassignment treatments or equivalent care. Access to gender-affirming care is quite difficult in most countries, especially in the United States. Conversely, while it's difficult for people in the trans community to access gender-affirming care, some trans people just want to socially transition, and studies show the benefits of social transitioning. So just what is social transitioning, and how does it help transgender people? A social transition involves a child presenting to other people as a member of the opposite gender in all contexts, e.g. wearing clothes and using pronouns of that gender. Previous studies about gender nonconforming kids who weren't allowed to transition found they experienced high levels of depression and anxiety. A 2017 study published in the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry found that allowing social transition can be greatly beneficial to the mental health of trans youth. Another study published a year later found that calling a student by their chosen name is linked to reduced depressive symptoms, suicidal ideation, and suicidal behavior among trans youth. Rogers' attempted ban on gender-affirming care, as detailed by the evidence, would lead to more harm than good for gender clinicians and the youth under their trusted hands. Forcing teachers to out students to their parents and also blocking the beneficial health care trans youth see as necessary and vital to their livelihood has been shown to be the antithesis of what will help trans youth. You can read the entire article. There is a little bit more to that, as well as follow those links to those studies and more information by going to lgbtqnation.com and looking for the article about the Arizona bill. Arizona doctors could face prison time. Might be a good search term to punch into there. Anywho, it is time for me to take my bottom of the hour break. When I come back, I do have some good stuff to talk about with you, as well as some good music for you. We're going to keep with that Friends theme in honor of Betty White when it comes to the music. So keep on listening here to Lavender Hill on KZUM. I'll be back in a few minutes after the break and the music. Little REM there for you with All the Right Friends. And I hope you've got some of the right friends there in your life. You are listening to Lavender Hill, and I've got some more good stuff to cover with you. You know, every year more and more queer politicians step forward and are running for local, state, and even federal offices here in the United States, and that is no different for 2022. According to another article from LGBTQNation.com, dozens of LGBTQ candidates are already slated to run for both state and federal offices, but they cover 5 who could break through the rainbow ceiling and make queer history. Every year, LGBTQ politicians, candidates, smash through rainbow ceilings in the fight to represent their communities, and 2022 should be no different, according to the article, with dozens of LGBTQ people already slated to run for both state and federal offices. The 5 that LGBTQNation.com are keeping their eyes on the most this year are ones that are running to make history in 2022, and truly, really, anyone who runs for an office and gets elected has made some level of history. Tina Kotek is top of the list. In 2013, she made history when she was elected as Oregon's Speaker of the House and became the first out lesbian speaker in any state house nationwide. Still serving in that role today, the progressive Democrat is taking on a new challenge, running for governor of Oregon. Kotek could become the nation's first out lesbian governor. She told LGBTQ Nation in November of last year, "It's an honor and frankly a privilege to be a trailblazer in this regard. I think for me it comes down to what message it sends to young people. It is still hard out there." Kotek is ready, she said, to take her leadership to the next level. She continued to say, "I've had the good fortune to be in the position to do things that really improve the lives of Oregonians. And this is a state I love, and it's a state that has allowed me to be myself. It's a beautiful place, and I want to give back. It's about making sure we can continue to improve people's lives." Another one on the list is Deja Alvarez, who is running for the Pennsylvania State House in the state's 182nd District, which includes Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. If elected, she will become the first out trans Latina member of the Pennsylvania House. A longtime LGBTQ advocate, she is currently the Director of Community Engagement for World Healthcare Infrastructure, which provides healthcare services to those in need. Additionally, she works as the LGBTQ Care Coordinator for the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. She is also the co-chair of the Philadelphia Police LGBTQ Liaison Committee, chairwoman for the city's Trans Day of Remembrance, and president of the Women's March on Philadelphia. She is an educator with the Transgender Training Institute and serves on the task force working to create an LGBTQ advisory board for the Philadelphia District Attorney. Wow, that's a lot of things that she's involved in. Alvarez co-founded, like there was more she needed to be doing, co-founded, and directed the LGBTQ Home for Hope, the state's first LGBTQ-specific shelter and recovery facility. During the pandemic, she also launched a food distribution program that delivered 800 to 1,000 cases of food per week to those in need. She is now transforming that project into a permanent food bank. The list goes on, and boy, does it go on. Alvarez is ready to use the skills she has built as an activist and community advocate to make a difference at the state level. She told LGBTQNation.com in September of 2021, "I've had to learn to build relationships and maintain them. I've had to learn to build a lot of these bridges so we could make a difference. And I think that's a skill I'll be able to utilize greatly going into this race and then winning this seat." Here is a name I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and one that I've spoken about here on the show before, Malcolm Kenyatta. Malcolm Kenyatta is running to represent Pennsylvania, there we go again, in the United States Senate. If he wins, he will be the first out gay man ever elected to the body. He would also be the first out black senator and the first black senator from the state of Pennsylvania. About time, right? Last year at the Democratic National Convention, Kenyatta was one of 17 rising star Democrats to deliver the keynote address. Excuse me, that was 2 years ago now because we are in 2022. Keynote address, and one of the first 3 out LGBTQ people to ever deliver such an address. In 2018, he became the first LGBTQ person of color to be elected to the Pennsylvania State General Assembly at the age of 28 in a landslide victory. As somebody who inhabits all of these intersections, he told LGBTQNation.com in 2020, growing up in an incredibly poor neighborhood to a working poor family as one of only 2 openly LGBTQ members of the Pennsylvania General Assembly and the only one that's a person of color, I see all the different ways that, frankly, our systems are broken. And we're not done yet. Kimmy Cole, a Nevada Democrat, is running to become the state's next lieutenant governor. A victory for Cole would make her the first out transgender statewide elected official in the country. Cole is currently the chair of the Nevada Democratic Rural Caucus, and before that she was the chair of the Douglas County Democratic Party. She has devoted her political career to uplifting the voices of rural voters and told Politico that Democrats have a lot to learn when it comes to messaging to rural people. Yeah, no doubt there. She's quoted as saying in a statement on her campaign website, "I'm a lifelong Nevadan with deep roots all across our state. I'm running for lieutenant governor because I believe Nevadans of all walks of life want and deserve authentic leadership, and that's exactly what this campaign is about. Our economy, climate, and everyday life is rapidly changing, and we need someone who can help lead our transition into the new era." And yet one more name on the list, and this is somebody that I know I've spoken about here on Lavender Hill, and Corwin did as well when he was my co-host for many years on the show, Brian Sims, also of Pennsylvania. In 2012, Pennsylvania State Representative Brian Sims made history as the first out gay member of his state's legislature. Now the progressive Democratic candidate for lieutenant governor could break yet another barrier and become the state's first out leader elected statewide. Sims told LGBTQ Nation this past June, "One of the great impacts of having LGBTQ people in office is showing people that authenticity often can carry the day." The LGBT Victory Fund, which has endorsed Sims, calls him one of the most visible out-elected officials in the United States. Currently serving in his 9th year as a state representative, Sims said he is running for higher office because Pennsylvania is in dire need of more progressive leadership, something he has unwaveringly worked to provide in the state's Republican-controlled legislature. "It's disappointing that Pennsylvania lacks so much progressive legislation and also a real opportunity for me," he said. "I've spent my 10 years leading the charge on women's rights, reproductive rights, racial and ethnic justice, certainly LGBTQ civil rights, issues of the environment, and even immigration." And on a local note, a candidate that I know I'm going to be paying attention to is James Michael Bowers here of Lincoln, Nebraska, who is going to be running to replace Adam Morfeld in the Unicam as Adam Morfeld moves forward with his campaign for Lancaster County Attorney. So, yeah, there's a lot of politics to pay attention to, and it's great to see so many groundbreaking individuals from varying backgrounds within the LGBTQIA, etc. community putting their names out there and getting things done. All righty, well, I've got a long list to try to address of brave and brilliant role models who spoke their truths and came out as LGBT plus in 2021. But before we get there, let's hear from Sleater Kinney with their song, "Bury Our Friends." Alrighty there, Sleater Kinney with "Bury Our Friends," and that doesn't quite do it for us musically here on Lavender Hill, but I've got some other stuff to cover before we get to our last song. Again, referring to pinknews.co.uk, my first time referring to them on today's show. We are nearly 2 years into a drawn-out pandemic that has left the world exhausted and ready to hibernate. We have just said goodbye to that year, and to be honest, it felt like it was a decade long, at least according to the author of this article. But it hasn't been all doom and gloom. Really, it hasn't, as 2021 saw a kaleidoscopic array of people bravely coming out. In heartfelt social media posts and interviews, actors, athletes, influencers, media personalities, models, lawmakers, drag queens, and more have proudly and defiantly shared their truths to the world. There's 61 names on this list. I don't think I'm going to get to all 61 of them while I'm reading it off, but we'll just see what happens here. JoJo Siwa, the sugary sweet bow tie wearing. JoJo suggested she was a member of the LGBT plus community in a TikTok video, and months later she did say, well, technically I'm pansexual, but I'm still figuring out my sexuality. Roberto Manrique, best known for his sufficiently steamy roles in popular telenovelas, said he was gay in a moving message to his younger self. Olivia Ponton, a model and social media star, said she is proud to be part of the LGBT plus community as a bisexual woman. Jack Dylan Grazer, the wunderkind actor who starred in Luca It, Chapter 2 Shazam, and many other programs, came out as bisexual in July. Chimano, the heartthrob lead singer of Afro-pop Kenyan boy band Sauti Sol, came out as a member of the LGBT plus community as recently as December. Angela Olsen, the American singer whose dream pop music illuminates the struggles of anxiety, came out as gay in April. Colton Underwood, the former star of the aggressively heterosexual show The Bachelor, announced he was gay on national television also in April. Abigail Thorne has long known how to put on a show, a YouTuber on PhilosophyTube. She has sought to educate the world about complex philosophical issues by blending them with theater production. Her coming out video was no exception last January. Lux Pascal, the sister of the Mandalorian star Pedro Pascal, reintroduced herself to the world as a trans woman in a raw interview with Chilean magazine Revista Ya. Kaylee Bryant, the Legacy star, kicked off her Pride Month with a pretty simple coming out message, while Carl Nassib, the 6'7", 200-stone Las Vegas Raiders defensive lineman, came out in a brief video he recorded on his phone this summer. Utada Hikaru, the dulcet Japanese-American pop superstar at the forefront of J-pop, casually came out as non-binary during an Instagram live session in June, while Kara Cunningham, the creator behind Leave Britney Alone YouTube videos, came out as trans earlier in the year. Joshua Bassett, the dictionary definition of a twink, best known for his role on High School Musical, The Series, revealed he is a member of the LGBT plus community while gushing over Harry Styles. Aquinas, the South Korean rapper known offstage as King Min-soo, revealed he was bisexual while making a vital point about LGBT plus rights in his homeland. Laganya Estrania, the RuPaul Drag Race legend, proudly came out as a trans woman in June, and Gigi Goode, another RuPaul Drag Race icon, candidly told her 1.3 million Instagram followers in August that she is a trans non-binary person. Kalani, the tattooed singer whose stint on America's Got Talent launched their career, said they were a lesbian during an Instagram live session. And Maddie Hassan, beginning her year in the best way possible, the Impulse icon bravely came out as bisexual also on Instagram. Jack Dunn, the Irish rugby pro, standing at a towering 6'8", shared how years of playground biphobia discouraged him from coming out. Joshua Cavallo, holding back tears, the Australian footballer who grew up in a sleepy Melbourne suburb, came out as gay in a powerful social media post in October. Mae Whitman, a 33-year-old actor known for her part in Good Girls, said she was pansexual in August. So nice to see the pan community being represented in this article. Lily Cole, the red-headed British supermodel, acknowledged she is not straight in an interview in August. Julian Morris, of Pretty Little Liars, came out as gay in a carousel of swoon-worthy photos celebrating 18 years with his boyfriend Landon Ross. Kieran Lovegrove, a professional baseball player, scored a home run as he came out as bi to ESPN's June Lee. Tommy Dorfman, who starred in dark teen drama 13 Reasons Why, reintroduced herself to the world as a proud trans woman in July. Alexandra Shipp, who played white-haired Storm in the X-Men film franchise, came out as a member of the LGBT plus community in a vulnerable social media post back in June. Luke Prokop, a hockey player, became the first active NHL player to come out as gay in July. Note, active NHL player. Ella Hunt, starring as the famous plucky poet in Dickinson's, gave star Ella Hunt a long-sought way to explore her own identity. Vincenzo Zapatafora, we're getting into some names that are going to twist up my tongue, one of Italy's top politicians and a torchbearer for the anti-establishment, came out as gay on primetime television in November. Chris Marshall, for All of Mankind, the icon thereof, came out as pansexual in a powerful social media post celebrating her relationship with Ted Dolan. Hayley Vernon, the Married at First Sight Australia icon, said that leaving the reality show gave her the confidence to come out as bi. Larry Saperstein, keeping to his brand High School Musical, the series, came out as bi in a cheeky TikTok video. TJ Osborne, the slick-haired country singer of band Brothers Osborne, became the first openly gay country artist signed to a major country label in February. Marco Lehmann, the quick-footed Swiss 3x3 basketball star, came out as gay also in January of last year. Cal Penn, actor, director, writer, former star of House and one-time White House staffer, opened up about his relationship with his fiancée of 11 years in his new book. Hugh Sheridan, also from Australia, who is 50% abs, according to this article, came out as non-binary while celebrating their new cover shoot for DNA magazine. Might have to check that one out. Abs. Okay. Becky Kill, a British singer who soared to prominence on The Voice UK, said being queer is the most fitting identity for who she is. Gigi Gorgeous and Nats Getty, the trans internet celebrity Gigi Gorgeous, came out for the fourth time as pansexual in April, while her spouse Nats Getty came out as trans non-binary at the beginning of the year. Wow, there's still many, many more names that I could go over, but I'm going to be running out of time. So rather than trying to go through the remaining of that 61 name list, and I know there's so many more, I invite you to check it out on pinknews.co.uk for yourself. And, read some of the articles about these trailblazers and these very brave individuals who have made it more accessible for our LGBTQIA2S SOGI community and our youth to be who they are and truly love themselves for who they are. I'm getting ready to hand things over to Deb Anderson and Twyla with the Women's Show. Twyla is going to be interviewing, remind me her name, Lily Lewis, And then going to be playing some of her favorites from 2021 in women's music. So stay tuned for that on The Women's Show. I'll be back in 2 weeks live. Next week, I will be doing a pre-recorded program as I'll be recovering from a surgery. So I do ask for your prayers, your good vibes, your positive juju, whatever it is that you want to send my way while I am in recovery. And I'll be back in 2 weeks for you. Next week's going to be a retrospective of 2021 on Lavender Hill. A little late, but hey, the timing works out. So here we go with some Bette Midler, my last song honoring the passing of the great Betty White, My One True Friend.